into the Friday edition of RFK Refugees Podcast. I am your host, Jon. With us, we have co-equity member of the RFK Refugees Podcast Network, Andi Sullivan. Andi, thank you for joining us from after training.
About my title upgrade that we've discussed.
Yep.
So thank you.
The green jacket is sitting off screen, waiting to be put on. So thanks for taking the time here in the middle of the year. Let's get started right away. So we're past the midpoint of the season. The rookies have had a tremendous impact on the team's position. The draft has been vindicated. Mark is probably feeling like the smartest man alive walking around the front office. There's players being brought in here, and over the summer window, you got a new coach. This has to be one of the better midpoint of the seasons since you've been there. I'm even talking about the championship year, just as far as momentum goes.
Very true.
What's the vibe?
Yeah, I think the vibe is definitely good. I think the part of the reason is so good is because we know that we're doing well, but we also know that we're going to continue to get better. So we feel like we're just laying a really strong foundation and that we're improving every single day. And there's like a hunger and a humility about the group that we're not satisfied. So I think that's part of the reason why the vibes are so good. It just feels very steady and very business as usual every day, whether we've come off, a win or a tie or a loss, and it's just always very focused environment. So it's been really fun to be around.
I don't know if you feel this sort of where your position on the roster and your seniority and all these things, but I'm wondering if you think, and this is probably a theoretical, players who are either newer or not getting as much time, seeing that this team is now being extremely aggressive in the international market, bringing in players in positions that already are pretty strong and they're just being more upgraded. Do you think there is? I think that's a change. I think that's sort of that's not been the case necessarily in the Spirit's past. Do you feel like that's on the mind of any of the players on the team, seeing that this team is just aggressively getting better in every spot they can?
I think it's definitely on the team's mind, but I think we're all very honest and open about that. Like, I think the team did a good job of saying, like, hey, we are going to sign new players, and just, to continue to focus on, again, you're here and you're here now and you're getting better. And that's the important thing. And people are going to come, and people, like, maybe at some point are going to go. And that's just part of being in this environment, as hard as it is, because obviously you want to build a tight knit culture. But having been here for a few years, people come and people go, and you have to just focus on the information and the task at hand. And I think our only focus is, as these players come in, just making them feel welcome and making our environment more competitive, because the message that we're sending is that with not better players, but more competitive players coming in, it's just going to make the environment better that we train in every day, and then it's going to make us all better. So that's kind of the attitude we're taking towards it.
Yeah, I think it's got to be it's a healthy situation for if you're a team that wants to excel both in the league and sort of, if you're going to be the international brand that the owner wants the club to be. Mm-hmm. That's life. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be an aggressive environment.
I would add to that too. I think we've started to see like a bit more rotation of our team in terms of players, starting sometimes, not starting sometimes. Coming out, making subs earlier, and just having more depth. And I think that is something that's different. Like you've said in years past, like it used to be kind of like there's an 11 and maybe a 12 and 13, and that's kind of it. And if we expand the choices in our roster and, again, make everyone on the team more prepared all the time, that we can rotate players more often and keep a freshness throughout the year, because obviously the schedule is very difficult, especially you have, internationals coming in and out. That's very difficult. A lot more West Coast travel this year. So like there are all these different factors, more games, all these things. So having more players and players that we can develop and we can all compete, and we all can look at each other and say like, yes, this person's ready to play, this person's ready to play, or this person's ready to play. And I would say that's something that is different from years past.
I think too, there's lots of positional flexibility. There always is. It feels like there's always one or two players that play four or five spots. I think of a player like Ashley Hatch, who has moved all over the field, and I think probably still, if you'd ask her, she'd still probably say 9 is where I prefer to be, but I'm flexible and I'll play everywhere. Do you think the higher, not like, I don't want to say higher level of competitiveness, but sort of the level being brought up makes it easier for a player like her to be like, all right, I'll go where I'm needed. I want to make sure, like, we want this team to be the best it can be. And if it's not me at a 9, and I could ask her this too next time I talk to her, but are you seeing that sort of, does the level of play and the competitiveness that's happening within the roster make that sort of selflessness more possible throughout the team and for the players that are having to go in and out?
I haven't thought about it that way, but I think that's a good way to look at it and think about it. I also think that as a team, we want to be able to have a little bit more interchange. And so to be able to have players that play multiple positions can allow us to more easily shift, like, both tactically in game plans, but also just in the run of play. And I think, like you said, Hachi's a great example of that. No matter what position she's playing, she's able to move in different ways to open things up, and we're able to adjust around that. And so how often can we do that more in more areas?
So we talked about all the players that have come in, or we haven't talked about them specifically, but there are at least 3 players coming in. I bet you there's probably some more. Who knows? Where does this team still need to strengthen itself if it wants to win another trophy? Is it about tactics, mentality, or do you still think this roster could still stand some additional reinforcements?
I love our team, and I think we have all the tools that we need to compete for a championship. Obviously, you can always add more tools, and that is always, an option, but I do think we have all the pieces that we need. I think the messaging that's coming, especially from Jonah and the way he says it, is we all need to speak the same language, which is funny because we also have players who don't speak English, and coaches who are speaking to each other in Spanish. So, but that's the cool part about soccer, right? It's like on the field, we all need to be reading the same things, both defensively and offensively. So that's kind of been where, like you said, where do we need to strengthen? And that's where we need to strengthen, is just being more committed and being on the same page all the time. Because small details make the biggest difference in a goal for or a goal against.
Before the season, when we were talking last time, I asked you to pick one player who was going to surprise you, and I think you named all of the new players, which is, I think, totally okay. But the last person you talked about was Hal, and you sang her praises. I had her on a couple weeks ago, and I told her that you did, and she was very touched, it seemed like. But what have you noticed?
She's faking.
Right. What have you noticed about her as she's gone through her first half season and, the whirlwind of a first call up, the Olympics alternate? Like, what have you noticed about her play so far this season? Has there been a big growth thing, or did she come in like, yeah, that's what she's going to be? I expect these things. This is what I forecast.
No, I think we've all grown for sure. But yeah, I had very high expectations of her from the get-go, and I think she's very steadily. Sorry, people are walking by and I'm waving now. Anna and Britt were wondering what I was doing. I have very high expectations of her for sure. And I think it's hard to say like what area of her game, like she's grown in the most, because I just feel like, again, the team has grown so much. Yeah. But I would just say, like, again, decision making. And again, that's us being on the same page, whether that's me and her, or her, I think her ability to keep the ball, but then also choose her moments of when to play in behind has really shined so brightly. And yeah, I just think she has all the tools of a very like complete midfielder. So, it's just, again, getting the, like, we talk about a team, like different rhythms and different contexts. And I think for her, that's where she's grown a little bit, because we like joked with her at the beginning of the season, like she's all rock and roll, like she wants to go all the time. And so I think she's adding a little bit more like calmness and patience to her game as a team, as we all are as well.
She and I talked about something that she does really well, and I think you do it really well too. And it's probably maybe a part of why you guys work together so well, is that she does a really good job of, whenever she receives the ball, making that first touch be a useful touch, either in the attack or sort of to reset. It's never like the ball is coming and then the decision about what to do happens after the fact. You guys both do that really, really well. I feel like that is part of what makes your partnership so fluid, and it enables the ball to move quickly onto the attack or wherever it needs to go. So you guys have that. You guys both have that very well
Thanks. Down. We work on that a lot, so that's good.
You're welcome. Speaking sort of about the partnership, you've missed a few games this year to injury. I think I said, as that happened, that sometimes this team looks like a car with a square wheel when you're not in it, just because of how well oiled it looks when you're all in there. how are you feeling now, sort of coming into this really wonderful, busy period here in July and August, or at least maybe a little bit of time to rest after this tournament happens? But how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I was having some issues with my hip, and it was frustrating because it would feel better and then feel worse. So I was, having an issue, and then I played again, and I had another issue, and then played again. So I think that's very stressful. I think a lot of athletes would say, like, we talk about the mental side of the game, and I think dealing with an injury, big or small, is one of the most difficult pieces because, especially when it's like uncertain or unclear. Or hard to comprehend. So I was struggling with that a little bit, but I feel like very grateful for the communication between me and the medical staff and the coaches, because that can also be a complex situation about everyone's like just kind of like playing telephone sometimes. And I appreciate like everyone's honesty and just being very upfront about, what they hope for, what they expect, what they understand. And so I'm feeling grateful for that, but I'm feeling much better. I really normally on the week off, I would try to like still work out kind of lightly. I did not work out. But yeah, and then this week kind of managing me a little bit more. And again, because we have such an amazing staff, we're able to do that. We're just able to tweak my loading a little bit more to make sure I'm easing back in, because obviously don't want any other setbacks. But it's been a good week so far, so I'm feeling good.
Speaking of load management, I think we talked about these games as they broke live last time about these this tournament that's happening, and now they're here. 2 games for you in non-NWSL markets, one of them against foreign competition. How are you viewing these games for yourself and for the league? I just heard Jonah on press conference basically say Kansas City is the priority here in a couple weeks, and we're going to try to be competitive, but we're also going to focus on that. So with that in mind, surely that's that permeates to what's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
But how are you looking at these games and sort of this opportunity to play in new places?
I am really excited for this time. I think mostly I'm excited for a lot of players who have been working really hard and have been showing really well to get more minutes and get opportunities to play in games. Because I feel like we have a lot of players who have done really well throughout the season. It's just been hard to break into the lineup or break into the game. And so I'm just and obviously you train well, but there's training and the game are different. So obviously you want to be able to show what you can do in a game. So I'm just really, really excited for that. And yeah, Jonah was clear with us. He said the same thing to us before he said it in the press conference, is like Kansas City and the regular season is our priority. But at the same time, these games are preparation for us as a team for that. So we're not going to, risk winning anything in this tournament that's going to jeopardize us in the season. But at the same time, it's still a really valuable competition for us because, even though, we're breaking from the season, it's a great time for us to prepare and work on things and focus on some things that we need to work on. And, so yeah, I'm really excited for this opportunity. I'm excited that we're playing at like different venues. I think that's actually really cool. I kind of wish other teams are doing that as well. Yeah. Because obviously it's fun to play in different markets and bring the NWSL to different areas that maybe would like a team or don't have as, good access to women's soccer as they would like. So I just think and also for us, it's kind of fun because let's say, for example, like we have to play, Gotham and Chicago or whatever so many times. So it's fun to just play them in a different place. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. And maybe I'm biased too, because these also are like drivable stadiums for us. So I think that is fun.
City Stadium's going to feel to you like Boyd, I think, a little bit as far as the locker room situation. You'll be used to it.
But I'm familiar, like we've played at Subaru Park before because we played there for Carly's send-off game. And I played some national team games there. And then, it'll be kind of fun to go back to Richmond because we played some preseason games there earlier in my Spirit days. So for me, I just think it adds like this different element that I'm personally excited for.
The Richmond Ivy draw really well down there too. So
yeah,
So kind of related to that is that we also discussed in the past when we were talking about the what the Challenge Cup was missing, where like, boy, wouldn't it be better if it was a US Open Cup style thing and you weren't just playing the same teams. And now you've got this USL Super League that's coming around. You got teams like Richmond Ivy at the Pyramid. I think it feels like a great opportunity to get younger players in NWSL. I mean, it's the weird way is that it's set up is that it's a competitor, and I think that will sort itself out all in the wash over time. But I think of players like Chloe, right? A player who got more minutes last year, sort of finds herself where she finds herself now, but is a young and talented player who made the jump very early and was already playing at sort of a semi-pro level beforehand. But this, in a perfect world where it's not competitive between the two leagues, would give players like that an opportunity to get game time minutes. What do you think about sort of the pyramid growing in the women's game a little bit with that league?
Yeah, I am really curious to see how the league starts off. And like you said, I think that will all kind of shake out in the long haul. I am really excited about playing the team from Mexico. I just think we haven't done that before. So I think that's a cool way to do it. And again, adds like a different element. But like you said, there's room for opportunity to go that direction. So we'll see what happens.
Audi Field has seen quite a few games so far this year, and I think it's starting to show a little bit. I know they're putting in new turf next month.
Yes.
But I haven't had a chance to ask any of the United players or anything else, but how has the pitch made things challenging for you at all? I know the subtext here is we can always say it's not Segra, so there's at least that. But how have you felt about the playing surface? Has it been a struggle at all? It's getting better, so they have an out. So the good thing is it will be better.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, is like I'm not so used to it, but the times that we played there earlier, it's been so perfect. So I have a very high expectation of it. And I think it's fair to say that it's seen better days. But I think we've handled it well. I think that especially with how we'd like to build out a little bit more, it can add a factor for sure, but I think we've handled it well. And I think you'd have to ask the goalkeepers a little bit their thoughts. I think they've had some tough experiences with some sandiness and whatnot. But yeah, I do think that's I don't want to be too harsh about it, but we're excited for it to be relayed, and maybe for some of the traffic on it isn't really going to die down, but
theoretically, it's supposed to be hybrid turf, so it's more resilient. We'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be better. Whatever it'll be better than that. I think that's a good thing.
I hope.
So we mentioned the Kansas City game that's coming up, and obviously they're off to a flyer. Orlando is off to a flyer. It's the best part about the NWSL is like the predictions you make and how wrong they are every single year.
I absolutely love that.
I know it's anybody. It could be anybody at any time. I feel like too, it's the sort of the pundit class around NWSL is like, these are the three teams. These are going to be the three teams. They are now. They'll be there at the end of the year. What team do you think that's sort of, I don't want to say stuttering so far, but is not in that group? Do you see as being the biggest threat? Portland was 8th or 9th at the beginning of the year. I think they've moved up a lot. They always do. That's the Portland. That's the Portland promise at a certain point of the year. Who is a team that people aren't looking at close enough that could be probably a threat as the season progresses?
I'm just going to speak to the first thing that popped in my head. The first team that popped into my head was actually San Diego, but that was prior to, obviously, they're going through a coaching change and a lot of club drama, and that can
another NWSL staple, right?
Yes. That can be both, that can be a catalyst in multiple ways. So, I kind of felt like when I watched them play that they were a really strong team, really complete, and had and they were just getting really unlucky. Yep. And so before they, fired their coach, that's what I would have said. Now I don't really know what to say. But that's the first team that popped into my head. But I also want to just speak on as much as I really don't like any team we play against, I am very very impressed with Orlando, because I feel 2 or 3 years ago, people were really giving them a really hard time. And a lot of their players there, especially when Hines took over, like a lot of their players there were like, no, we have a really good group. We're building something special. We're like, we're diving into this mentality. And again, I think they really bought in, and now they're reaping the reward. And I personally love that story, because I think it's something I relate to. Is just, it can be very easy when things aren't going well, especially to look up, look elsewhere and see if the grass is greener. And I just think they did a really good job of having players like fully buy in, really appreciate their team. And they're not just like, oh, doing well, like they're doing so well. So I just, I have a lot of respect for that. And similar to Kansas City, obviously they were, up and then down, and then now they're back up. And I'm like not really surprised that they're doing so well. Like I think Vlatko in a club environment is a really solid choice. So I think I'm not really surprised at that either. But the message that I told the team in a meeting a few weeks ago, I feel like we can just cut that whole previous part out. We don't even need it. Well, this is what I wanted to say.
The DVD extras, this previous part.
What I told the team in a meeting a few weeks ago was the year we won the championship, we were like close to the bottom of the table at the midpoint of the season. We were not in playoff contention at the midpoint, and we went on a streak and snuck our way into playoffs and then won. And then in previous years, we've gone into the break in first last year. And by the end of the season, we didn't make playoffs. So I kind of like reminded the team that momentum is extremely important. And it's going to be really, really important to stay, again, humble, focused, because the table doesn't mean anything at this point in the season. Like, yes, it's exciting, but I am very, very curious to see who takes off in the second half of the season, because we've seen that several times of a team like sneak their way up. So
wire to wire first place does not typically happen in the NWSL.
Yes.
It gets inverted quite a few times typically. Orlando is a really interesting story, right? Like, they had ownership challenges, they had attendance problems, they had their star players. You had Taylor and Alex leave. You had just sort of, it was just assumed they're like, all right, this is a team that is just they're throwing in all the pieces on the ground and rebuilding, and so quickly, and with some really great key additions that are like league MVP type players.
Yeah,
they've had such a great first half. It'll be very interesting to see how well they can keep that up through the course of a full season. But it's a good story either way, like you said.
Yes.
One last question, and again, always appreciate your time. You're so generous with it.
I ramble a lot, so I have to.
That's why you're my favorite to talk to. I am never pulling anything out of you.
Sam's here shaking his head at me.
She doesn't ramble. She just thinks she rambles.
No, I think she's eloquent.
I'm long-winded.
You give good, thoughtful answers.
Okay, I'm reframing my process.
That's
he
right.
said, because he was thanking me for my time. He was like, you're always so generous with your time. I'm like, well, I have to be more generous because I go over the window by my talking. Okay.
Usually it's my Paul Andi. So
last question.
Last question. This season has already brought a new attendance record, and I think I'm noticing a lot more coverage generally in the DC media space. What do you attribute that bump to? Is it just this team, or is it the time? The time is finally aligned with the attention the club should be getting. It's just getting its due. What do you think?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I really would like to say that it is the investment that Michelle has put into our marketing team. Because I think we've always had, again, this is a really, really strong team and we're performing really well. It's a strong team with a lot of also really exciting, unique personalities that people relate to. So like, I'm not only going to say like, oh, it's just the team like we've had, those, opportunities in the past, but now I would say it's like the investment that Michelle has put in, because we have this like huge business side. We joke about this, me and a few other players who have been here, or even staff like Ben Burchek. Like it used to be, a few players and you knew the staff members. There were like 5 of them and they did 70,000 jobs and you knew everyone who worked with Spirit. And now it's like we go to a business side meeting and people are like, Andy, what's that person's name? And I'm like, to be honest, I don't really know. And I would like to know everyone's name, but I think that I need to accept like that is changing as well. So I just would like to say that it is like, yes, we have a really amazing product, but we also have this really amazing business side that is, because we have this great product, is able to market it so well, sell a bunch of tickets, partner with all these amazing people, reach out, do different collabs, and then more people are interested in covering it. And another side note is like one of my friends from high school was back in our hometown, which is like 45 minutes outside of Audi. And he texted me like, hey, I'm at the giant grocery store that we always would go to. And there's like a middle-aged older man rocking a Bethune jersey. And I was just like, that's so freaking cool. You know what I mean? Like that, yeah. It like warmed my heart. I sent it to Croy. So I just think, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but I would mainly say it's, the investment that, again, we have brought into the team and to market the team.
It's like a startup that got acquired by Google or something. You guys are
pretty
like,
much.
Yeah, it's great. Andi, thank you so much. I wish you guys luck here in this mini tournament. I hope everybody gets a chance to shine. Everybody comes out healthy, and we're ready to rock for Kansas City in a couple weeks.
I hope you edit this so well that I sound so brilliant.
It's out of the can. You just sound that way. Andi, thank you very much. Everybody else, Monday, normal time, live show, 8:30 on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and every single thing that ever had a live stream function. You'll find us there. See you guys Monday. Vamos. Thank you for listening to RFK Refugees Podcast. Make sure you rate and review the show wherever you download podcasts. If you want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon or subscribing to our channel on Twitch. Lastly, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, Twitch, Goals.tv, Friendster, MySpace, and Tumblr. Some of those are even real. Vamos.